Hi there, today we're going to talk about sanders and edgers and their uses and many areas that you should be looking at when you're trying to use them, okay? These machines were originally engineered to be doing hardwood floors. So to use them in other areas, you've got to remember that the finesse is to give you a pristine floor in hardwood. But we can also use them in areas outside, like sanding decks in your backyard. You can also use them to sand when you lay down underlaying underneath on a floor before you put down your finished floor to get the joints nice and smooth and get the high and the lows taken care of. So in those three areas that they can be used, the concept of using the machines is relatively the same. I'm just going to go through a few do's and don'ts in how to use the machines, okay? Now, first of all is the sander. The floor sander that you want to use in the most. The edger over here, it's a backbreaker. You're going to be bent over all the time to use it. This one you're standing up. So it's a good idea to do as much to the floor, hardwood floor, joints, decks with the floor sander. Now, underneath the floor sander, you have the drum, which is where your paper is going to be attached. And there are different types of floor sanders. Some use a tube of paper, a little more expensive. This paper is less expensive in the realms of the different designs. And also you've got to remember the wheels on the bottom. And that's where the contact is made on your surface, either with the wheels or with the drum where the paper is. The most important thing to remember is having the right tools, not only the sander and edger to do your job, but also the right tools to put the paper onto the machine so it doesn't rip. A good long screwdriver, about a 1/2 inch wide slot, will allow you to loosen off these two screws that are about 1 inch long. And you just loosen them off. They're holding this bar on. And you take the paper and you tuck it underneath the bar. Wrap it all the way around. And these slots, of course, will be over the paper underneath the bar, but also the slots will allow the screws to go through. Wrap it all the way around and then clamp the bar on top of the paper. You're going to have this kind of thing, okay? And then pull the paper, pinch it hard, and then tighten the screws down. You can even loosen them off and pull it again. The idea is that you must get the paper on nice and firm and tight. If you can pinch the paper like this and lift it, the machine's going to start up. It runs at a very high RPM. It'll rip the paper. It'll rip right across. And this is more prevalent on the coarser paper. Normally we'll use 3 different grips of paper on a hardwood. We'll use the medium, we'll use the real coarse to get the old finish off, then you'll go over it again with the medium, and you'll finish with the fine. You don't want to finish too much finer than about 80 grit. You tend to burnish the wood if you don't move along quickly enough cutting your wood. And then when you burnish the wood, you go to put your finish on and you get this blotchiness. So we just recommend that these 3 grits work pretty well on most all jobs. Only because it's easier to put on, gives you a little less, more of a chance to try to use the machine, to get used to it, and then you can go to the coarse if you have to, just to rip off the old finish. So once you've got your paper on, put the guard down. Also notice that you're closer on the right hand side than this side. That's the side you want to go along the walls with if you're doing the hardwood floor. Put the machine down, plug it in, of course. Good idea to throw the cord over your shoulder, get it out of the way. When your bag gets about half full, empty it, otherwise you start blowing dust all everywhere. Start your machine up, lift the machine up first, of course, start your machine, and then as you go across the floor with the boards, bring it down, sand, and then when you get to the end, lift it up. All right, the pace you go will depend on how the finish is coming off the floor and how you're sanding. Now, you can come backwards and sand as well, but when you don't use it all the time, it's a good idea just to go forward, turn around and come back and get used to it. Bringing it down on the floor smoothly is the trick. If you're way up high and start going down and you bang it on the floor, excuse me, you're going to end up with a little gouge in your floor. And if you go to the end and you don't lift it and you just stop and come back, you're going to end up with another little divot in the end of on the end of your run. So just like landing a plane, nice and smooth, and lift off. Turn around, do the same thing coming back and forth. Okay? Now, when you have the edges, which are left because you couldn't reach it with this machine, that's where you'll use the edger. The edger, again, has 3 different grits of paper. More than likely, you'll always use the real coarse paper because on the edges you've got more of the buildup of a finish that you couldn't get off with the sander. So again, a 9/16 socket, take the washer and nut off, put the paper on, clamp it down by hand, lift your machine, start it, bring it down on the back wheels first and then down onto the floor. Usually if the boards are going this way, it's a good idea to go forward first, get the crests of the boards off, and then go back and forth. The only areas you really can't sand with these machines on the floor is the corners, which you'll scrape out. Now, with that concept, let's say we're going to do a deck, and we're going to sand our deck outside. Maybe a 2x4 deck, 2x6, maybe 1x6 top boards. 9 times out of 10, they're always warped, so you want to get them flat. A belt sander, if you're using a handheld belt sander, the tendency is to follow the board. Because you're down on your hands and knees, it's a lot harder, it takes more time. With a drum sander like this, you're going to be having a flat drum. The only grits you'll use will be the 24 and the 40. You won't need the fine grit on a deck outside. But one thing you'll want to do as a little tip is where these wheels are on the back, take a piece of masking tape or electrical tape and mark where they are on the back of the casing of the machine. That way you can position the machine in the middle of the board, and as you're going down the board, you won't drift off and possibly go off the board, and then the machine will drop onto the edge of the wood. So the same concept works. Bring it down on the wood easily, bring it up, and go back and forth on your boards. And you'll be able to sand your boards all down nice and flat and smooth, and you'll keep going until you get the gully out of the middle of the board. Now, the other thing is, make darn sure that you've got those nails or screws down, or again, you're going to rip the paper. And if you start ripping it in strips, you'll know you've hit a nail or a screw in the board. If you're using it to sand some subfloor down before you put hardwood or laminate down on the floor, and you got your plywood down, you want to sand the joints, very simple. Probably just use the 24 grit, go all the way around the joints, and you'll get the curl up from the edges flat, and then when you go to put your finish floor down, it'll be nice and flat, and you're doing it standing up. Some people in the past have used the edger, but again, you're bent over, you're on your back, it's very hard and tedious to use an edger. It's much easier to use the drum sander. So that's our session. Talk to you soon.